Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Mr. Pandaria raiding guide, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the heroic mode version of Ji-Kun in the Throne of Thunder raid. Now in order to complete this fight, you're going to want to bring 2 tanks, 2 to 3 healers which we will talk about in a moment, and the remaining a mixture of both melee and ranged DPS. You'll probably want to bring along some bursty classes, and if you can just stack shamans, they're the best. I mean, if you could have a 10 shaman raid, you would want a 10 shaman raid for this fight. The majority of this fight hasn't changed, there's just one new element that does make it a bit more of a challenging heroic mode. However, the majority, such as the quills, is still here. The pushback that he will do, the downdraft ability, where you need to run at him. Obviously, quills dealing a lot more damage as well, just to jump back a second. He'll also still do his core ability, where he targets a person and like fires a sound wave at them, and this is kind of stuff that you need to dodge because it does do a lot of damage and could potentially one-shot people if badly timed with a quills. Now if you do opt to only bring 2 healers, then you're going to have one healer who is very strong at healing through the quills damage on the main platform, because the second healer will be going with one of the groups, and I say groups because you're going to split your raid into 2 groups, which again I will speak about in a moment. And since quills does do a lot of damage, you will need, like I say, people that can heal through it, and you're probably going to be healing like just over half of the raid. So this is why it is advisable for you to bring 3 instead of 2 healers. The boss will also still do his feed young ability, and you will still get these green puddles of death. It's what they are really, green puddles of death on the floor. Now, since this is heroic mode, and the fight does go on for quite a substantial amount of time, you will be getting quite a few of these on the floor. So you do need to kind of be aware of what your positioning is. Make sure you're not kind of blocking off any of the exits or where players are going to run in order to jump down to nests. Just makes people's lives a bit easier. And just to quickly take a look at the tanking side of things, you want to be looking to swap when you reach 2 stacks of the debuff that gets placed on you. If you do happen to take a third, then you will want to use a powerful cooldown, as it will one-shot you. So just use a powerful cooldown if you need to take a third. You probably won't need to, but just in case. Okay, so now we need to kind of move on to the most important part of the fight and what makes it a heroic mode fight. On some of the nests from now on, both the upper and the lower nests, you will have a new mob spawning called a Nest Guardian, and for this you will need one of your tanks to jump down and tank the Guardian. And if the Nest Guardian is not tanked, then it will begin dealing a lot of kind of damage to everyone on that nest every second, so you need to have it tanked. You also need to make sure that it's facing away from the raid, because it does a frontal cone kind of ability which can hit quite hard. So what you want to do to start off with is you want to assign both of your tanks to be tank 1 and tank 2. That's pretty simple. And then you want to create 2 groups, both group 1 and group 2, that compose of 2 DPS and 1 healer. And each group and tank will have a specific platform to go to, so there's kind of a rotation that you have to remember. Now, because remembering this can be a bit of a pain, I'm actually going to put it on screen for you as well now while I'm saying it. So for the first nest, which will be a lower one, you will want group 1 and tank 1 to go. For the second one, which will be lower, you want group 2 and tank 2. For the third one, which will be lower, you want group 1 and tank 1. For the fourth one, which will be your first upper one, you want group 2 and tank 2. For your 5th one, which will be an upper nest, you want group 1 only. For your 6th one, that will be an upper nest, again you want group 1 only. For your 7th one, which will be a lower nest, you want group 1 and tank 2. For your 8th one, which will be a lower nest, you want group 2 and tank 1. For your 9th one, you will want group 2 and tank 2. For your 10th one, which will be an upper, you want just group 2. For your 11th one, which will be an upper, you want group 1. And for your 12th one, which will be an upper, you want group 1 and tank 1. Now, this is due to the way that the feathers actually work. and who needs to fly about where, because you can only pick up a feather a certain amount of times, and it kind of has a debuff on it as well, so you can't pick it up once you've already picked one up. And you should also remember that at all times during this fight, if possible, you should use your feather in order to fly up and get hit by one of the Ji-Kun green little globules that's going to fly up from the boss and towards one of the nests. And this will give you a damage increase. And I think at one point our shaman said he crit for 700k or something along those lines. I don't know if that's much or not, but he seemed to be happy with it, and it put a smile on his face. So it does give you quite a substantial damage increase. You should also bear in mind that when you are jumping from one of the upper platforms, you should not need to use your feather in order to reach the lower platform again. If you do feel a bit unconfident in, reaching the lower platform in one hit without falling and just falling, which you don't actually die from, you will eventually get put back onto the platform. But nevertheless, you can use an ability that might increase your movement speed or something along those lines. Or, for example, hunters could use disengage, or any other class that might be able to kind of boost themselves in a certain direction. These kinds of abilities can help you out when it comes to jumping back down. The same applies from when you're jumping from the top platform down to the lower nests. If you do feel a bit unconfident, you can use movement boosting abilities, or also abilities such as disengage, in order to try and land more centrally on the lower nests. Now, when it comes to actually burning the boss and using your Bloodlust, Time Warp's Heroism, and possibly your second potions as well, we waited until the boss was at around roughly 145 million health, and this is about the 40% mark, and it also occurred after the 9th nest. Now, there is no kind of major rush for damage on this fight. I think he has a very, very kind of bearable enrage timer. So you can also wait until you've done the 12th nest, or you could go for it a bit earlier. You don't want to start nuking until you've taken like a quills or a downdraft or something along those lines. You've got to make sure that you've got plenty of time after that, so that your bloodlust doesn't get wasted. So for example, in the video in the background, we used it straight after the 9th one, and then we had the full duration of the Bloodlust, Time Warp or Heroism, whatever it was we used, and then after it had expired we got a downdraft, and then we got a quills. Now this is also where the argument for 2 to 3 healers can come into play again. At this point, obviously nuking the boss will be a lot faster if you do only have 2 healers, but at the same time, if you have 3 healers and one of them is a Disc Priest, then they can obviously smite the boss to death. So it's kind of whatever works best for your raid really when it comes to the healing composition. But you should also bear in mind that if you do start nuking at around 35-40%, then the boss's health is going to take some time to go down, and the raid will eventually start taking a lot of damage. And as you can see from our kill in the background, you do run out of quite a bit of space due to the Ji-Kun green gooey food stuff being all over the floor. But all in all, this is a pretty decent fight. It's fun as well. We enjoyed it, and the majority of it is very, very simple once you have figured out where people need to be and when, and then you just take the fight from there. It's very simple. So, as always, thank you for watching, and if you are interested in future Mr. Pandaria raiding guides, or have any questions about this encounter, then you can head on over to www.flaskup.com/forums for more information on this fight and also discuss it. Tell us any sneaky little tactics you might know about it, something that we've not mentioned possibly. And for any future videos, please do feel free to subscribe to the channel.